ministry advocates use of cashless transaction in health facilities amid COVID-19. Election Commission enforces tight COVID-19 preventive measures. Hello and good evening, and I'm Mohammed Amin Carlos. Welcome to News at 10. The government has called on Malaysians to conduct payments via cashless transaction by using e-wallet, debit or credit cards in hospitals or public health institutions. Health Minister Dato Seri Dr. Adham Baba said other than creating a cashless society, this could also reduce any possibilities of COVID-19 infection.
Ada lebih kurang 40 juta pesakit yang datang ke fasiliti KKM tahun 2019. Jadi pada setengah tahun ni sampai Jun kita dah hampir meningkat 20 juta datang ke klinik kesihatan dan juga ke jabatan pesakit luar serta berbayar di ward masuk.
Dato Seri Dr. Adham explained that the frontliners are facing a bigger challenge with the sheer number of patients visiting the health facilities. He said the ministry was reviewing intelligent solutions using the latest technology to increase the quality of health services in line with the current need to reduce the crowd in our facility. He added that in line with the Industrial Revolution 4.0 development, the Health Ministry has been embracing such technologies by implementing services like SMS, Take and Go and Drive-Through Pharmacy, allowing patients to get their medicine easier without having to queue at the facility's counters. The Health Minister also said that to date, the ministry has implemented e-payment using debit card at 139 hospitals, 4 healthcare institutes and 144 health clinics across the country. Well, meanwhile, Dato Seri Dr. Adham said the National Security Council, MKN, and the Health Ministry are currently undertaking risk assessment exercises for several districts in Kedah as more areas have been infected by COVID-19. Now, the Health Minister said any announcement regarding areas subjected to the Special Administrative Temporary Enhanced Movement Control Order will be done by the MKN.
Kedah tak boleh, Kerajaan Kedah dia belum boleh mengumumkan kerana kuasa mengumumkan datang dari MKN pusat. Jadi segala yang perlu dibuat ialah risk assessment. Kita buat kajian risiko di tapak dan cadangan-cadangan untuk mengadakan TEMCO ataupun MCO di enhance ataupun PKP diperketat tu boleh dilaksanakan sekiranya kita dah dapat kelulusan daripada MKN terutama sekali pengumuman dibuat oleh Menteri Kanan Pertahanan Datuk Seri Semai Sabri.
Well, meanwhile, Malaysia recorded 20 new cases of COVID-19 today, bringing the total number of cases to 9,149. Health Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah, in a statement today, explained that of the 20 new cases, 7 were imported, while 13 were local transmission cases. Well, explaining further, Dr. Nur Hisham said of the 7 import cases, 6 are locals with 1 foreigner who returned from Lebanon, Indonesia, Yemen, Taiwan and France. He said 11 of the 20 local transmissions are from the Tawar cluster in Kedah. The Health DG also reported that the ministry has discovered a new cluster in Kuala Muda, Kedah. Dr. Nur Hisham also reported that another 7 COVID-19 patients were discharged from hospital, bringing the total cumulative discharge cases to 8,828. Well, he said the number of active cases in the country stands at 196, with 4 of them being treated in the intensive care unit and 1 requires the use of ventilator. The number of COVID-19 related deaths remain at 125, with no new death reported today. Well, a group of 104 individuals who were stranded at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, KLIA, after arriving on a flight yesterday have been sent to quarantine stations. Senior Minister Dato Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said their flight was not in the original schedule of arrivals and the authorities needed time to arrange hotels for their quarantine. Explaining further, the Senior Minister said that yesterday a group of individuals was stranded at KLIA because they were not sent to the quarantine stations returns within the stipulated time. Well, he said checks showed that 13 flights landed at KLIA and one aircraft with 104 passengers was not in the original schedule. Dr. Sri Ismail Sabri said the Secretariat took immediate action to send the stranded group in small batches to available hotels and ensure that refreshments were served throughout the process. He said the last batch was sent to the quarantine station at 10 p.m. Meanwhile, Dr. Sri Ismail Sabri said a total of 10,838 individuals had returned to Malaysia via the country's entry points, and all had been placed in one of 60 hotels and 5 public training institutes nationwide. And of the total, he said that 44 individuals were taken to hospital for treatment, while 2,992 individuals were discharged and allowed to return home. A senior citizen known as Pink Wristband Woman, who had violated the home quarantine order, has been sentenced to jail for 1 day and fined 8,000 ringgit by the Ipoh High Court today. The accused, Nur Imam Muhammad Hashim, 72, pleaded guilty after the charge was read before Magistrate Nabiha Muhammad Noor. Well, according to the charge sheet, the accused had violated the home surveillance order issued to her under Section 15, subsection 1 of the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Act 1988, and she went to a cafe at Lengkok Meru Permai 1 on 6 July. The offence under Section 22, subsection B, carries a punishment under Section 24, subsection A of the same act, which is a jail term of not more than 2 years or a fine or both upon conviction. The magistrate also ordered for the accused to be imprisoned for 6 months if she fails to pay the fine. If the statement of facts, it was noted that Nur Imam underwent a COVID-19 screening at KL International Airport, KLIA, upon her arrival from the United Kingdom, and she was required to observe home quarantine from 4th July until 18th July. However, she violated the order, and a picture of her in the restaurant went viral on social media.
Tanggal 31
Bulan 8, 57.
Merah mubarak semangat wajah.
Tanggal 31
Bulan 8, 57.
Hari yang mulia, hari bahagia, sambut dengan jiwa yang merdeka.
Apa pengertian tentang Hari Kebangsaan?
Pengertian Hari Kebangsaan, kita nak kemerdekaan untuk negara kita sudah merdeka dan kita akan sokong negara kita.
Kita hidup aman dan damai serta tidak bermusuh-musuhan dengan sesiapa pun.
Bebas daripada cengkaman, bebas daripada penjajahan.
Bro, siapa bapa kemerdekaan?
Tunku Abdul Rahman.
Siapa yang buat jalur gemilang?
Muhammad bin Hamzah.
Jalur gemilang ada berapa warna?
4.
Bila Hari Kebangsaan nanti?
31 Ogos
Tahun?
1957.
Kepercayaan kepada Tuhan,
Kesetiaan kepada raja dan negara,
keluhuran perlembagaan,
merawat undang-undang
sopanan.
dan kesusilaan.
Anda rakyat Malaysia. Sekarang Perdana Menteri yang ke-berapa?
Yang ke-8.
Siapa nama?
Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin.
MBSA enforcers nabbed for allegedly protecting illegal premises. The Election Commission will apply and ensure strict enforcement of COVID-19 preventive guidelines during the Slim State seat by-election. In a statement, EC Secretary Ikmal Rudin Ishak said under the guidelines, voters who are at risk and do not clear the body temperature checks will still be allowed to vote in special tents, which are monitored by health officers. Well, he also said that persons under surveillance and persons under investigation have to apply for permission from the district health officer to go to the polling centres. Iqbal Ruddin said the guidelines will be enforced at all stages of the election process, from the briefings for staff, nomination of candidates and official counting of votes. Well, he said the key issue was compliance to social distancing, wearing masks, using hand sanitizer liquids and body temperature checks. Iqbal Ruddin said throughout the campaign period, each candidate will be allowed to open up a committee room or a party operations room while abiding by the requirements for social distancing, wearing masks, body temperature checks and using hand sanitizers. Now, during the political talks, the number of attendees cannot exceed 250 at any one time, while the place is subject to the size of the venue and permit obtained from the police. On visits to the homes of voters, the candidate or his representatives will not be allowed any physical contact or to shake the hands of the occupants, and the candidates are encouraged to campaign using online mediums or the social media. The EC Secretary also explained that the EC will monitor all the candidates' activities during the campaign period with the help of 2 election campaign enforcement teams, including compliance with the special guidelines. The Slim State seat by-election is being held following the death of incumbent Dato Muhammad Kushairi Abdul Talib, 59, on 15th July. In a related development, more than 500 police personnel will be on duty to monitor the nomination process for the Slim State by-election tomorrow. Mualim Police Chief Superintendent Sulizmi Effendi Sulaiman said this will help in maintaining public order during the nomination process. The police will mount 2 roadblocks at kilometer 117 of Jalan Persekutuan southbound and kilometer 121 northbound towards the nomination centre at the Tanjung Malim District Council beginning 6:30 a.m.
Masuk ke pusat penanaman calon juga ditutup, iaitu yang pertama, simpang masuk ke Majlis Daerah Tanjung Malim dari Jalan Persekutuan, iaitu berhadapan Petronas Berang 2020. Dan yang kedua, laluan masuk ke Majlis Daerah Tanjung Malim melalui Jalan Wawasan Mesra Perdana.
Superintendent Sulizmi said candidates from Barisan Nasional would be allowed in via Jalan Wawasan Perdana, while candidates from other parties via Jalan Persekutuan. He stressed that only 3 individuals, the candidates, the proposer and the seconder, are allowed to enter the nomination centre, while gathering activities are not allowed during the nomination day. He also reminded supporters to refrain from creating provocations during the campaigning period, apart from complying with the standard operating procedure, the SOP, to curb the spread of COVID-19. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, has remanded another 3 enforcement officers as well as an enforcement director of the Shah Alam City Council, or MBSA, to help in the investigations into the case of allegedly accepting and collecting bribes to protect illegal business premises in Sungai Buloh. The remand orders were issued by Magistrate Shahwir Abdul Halim at the Putrajaya Magistrates Court. While the 3 officers were detained at the MACC headquarters yesterday after arriving to give their statements, and were brought to the court today at 8:30 a.m., handcuffed and wearing the MACC orange attire. Now, meanwhile, the MBSA Enforcement Director was detained this morning after arriving to give his statements. The 4 suspects are being investigated under Section 17, Subsection A of the MACC Act 2009. Previously, 6 MBSA enforcement officers and 1 trader were remanded in connection to the same case. The issue surfaced after 2 video clips went viral, alleging that the authorities have not taken action against gambling activities and dens in Bandar Baru, Sungai Buloh. Following this, the MACC began investigations and is working with the Integrity and Standards Compliance Department, or JIPS, in Bukit Aman to investigate the allegations. The Kuala Lumpur High Court has dismissed an application by Dato Sri Najib Razak to strike out his abuse charge over his alleged role in the tampering of the 1MDB 2016 audit report. Judge Muhammad Zaini Mazlan, when delivering his judgment, noted that the ground submitted by Dato Sri Najib failed to meet the standards required to grant the dismissal. Well, Judge Muhammad Zaini pointed out that such applications aimed at setting aside or quashing a charge should only be allowed in the rarest of circumstances where there could be a miscarriage of justice. Well, the judge asserted that it was then incumbent on Dato Sri Najib and his lawyers to prove any charge is oppressive or supposed abuse of the courts through the court process itself. He said the grounds submitted by the applicant should only be considered at the end of the prosecution's case, for it would be premature for the court to, at this stage, consider them without availing itself of all the evidence that the prosecution will submit. Dato Sri Najib had filed an application contending the charge meted out to him in a trial where he is being jointly tried with former 1MDB Chief Executive Arul Kanda Kandasamy. He was charged with abusing his position as Prime Minister and Finance Minister to order amendments on February 2016 to the Auditor General's audit report on 1MDB before its finalization and presentation to Public Account Committee or PAC to avoid any civil or criminal action against him. Lebanon's parliament ratifies state of emergency after deadly blast. Well, in the foreign news, Lebanon's parliament approved a 2-week state of emergency in Beirut declared after last week's gigantic port-side explosion, giving the army greater powers to suppress resurgent protests. Well, top diplomats jetted in to show solidarity and contribute to the massive ongoing aid effort, but also to weigh in on political developments following a blast widely blamed on state corruption. Well, a senior U.S. envoy said the FBI would join the probe into the colossal blast that killed 171 people, injured thousands and reignited street protests, demanding the ouster of the entire political elite. Dozens of demonstrators shouted as lawmakers arrived at Parliament to ratify the emergency measure. But protesters, outnumbered by security forces, failed to block the MPs' cars. Lebanese are furious at a political leadership that allowed a massive shipment of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, a powerful explosive, to languish for years in a port warehouse despite repeated safety warnings. The state of emergency approved by Parliament has worried Lebanon's 10-month-old anti-government protest movement, which had faded amid the COVID-19 pandemic and deepening economic hardship, but had returned to the streets in force since the 4th August disaster. Afghan authorities said they had started to release 400 Taliban prisoners, the final hurdle in long-delayed peace talks between the two warring sides, even as President Ashraf Ghani warned they were a, quote, danger to the world, unquote. Now, the Afghan government and the Taliban are set to meet within days of the prisoner release being completed in a move that has drawn widespread condemnation after it emerged many of the inmates were involved in attacks that killed scores of Afghan and foreigners. Now, National Security Council spokesman Javed Faisal recently said that a group of 80 prisoners have been released recently, tweeting that it would speed up efforts for direct talks and a lasting nationwide ceasefire. Well, the peace talks will be held in Doha, Qatar. The release of the 400 militants was approved at the weekend by a gathering of thousands of prominent Afghans called by Ghani after the authorities initially refused to free the militants. And according to an official list seen by AFP, the prisoners include some 44 insurgents of particular concern to the United States and other countries for their role in high-profile attacks. New Zealand Premier Jacinda Ardern today announced an extension of a lockdown of its largest city, Auckland, by at least 12 days as authorities struggle with a growing new COVID-19 outbreak. Now, since 4 people tested positive on Tuesday, the first cases in community transmission in 102 days, New Zealand has detected a cluster of 30 virus cases. Now, most of those cases have been found around Auckland, a city of 1.5 million people who have been asked to stay at home. Worryingly, 2 of the infections were found in the town of Tokoroa, around 210 kilometers south of Auckland. Authorities are still struggling to find out how the virus came to return to New Zealand, which had earned global praise for its handling of the crisis. Ardern said that genetic testing had shown no link between this outbreak and cases in quarantine arrivals from overseas or from the first wave of cases. But she voiced optimism that the latest outbreak had been quickly detected and could be brought to heel. The New Zealand Premier added that extensive testing and contact tracing had determined the earliest case becoming sick around 31st July. Well, Britain said it will reimpose quarantine for travellers from France and the Netherlands following a rise in COVID-19 cases in those countries. A Transport Minister, Grant Shapps, wrote on his official Twitter page that data showed the need for Britain to remove France, the Netherlands, Monaco, Malta, Turkey, Caicos and Aruba from their list of COVID-19 travel corridors to keep infection rates down. Now, the move will likely spark a mass exodus among the estimated 500,000 British holiday makers currently in France and Britain. Initially imposed a blanket quarantine on all visitors arriving in the country, but later carved out travel corridors, which exempted travellers arriving from certain countries from having to self-isolate. But it reintroduced the quarantine for travellers arriving from Spain at late July, catching the airlines by surprise and thousands of Britons leaving for their holidays. It reimposed quarantine for travellers from Andorra, Belgium and the Bahamas last week. With over 41,000 deaths due to COVID-19 disease, Britain is the worst hit country in Europe, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been criticised over his handling of the crisis. Tens of thousands of Belarusians stage a wave of peaceful protests against President Alexander Lukashenko's disputed re-election and an ensuing brutal police crackdown. In apparent concessions, Belarus announced the release of more than 1,000 detained protesters, and the Interior Minister apologized to injured bystanders. European countries condemned the police violence, with the European Union set to discuss possible sanctions today. Crowds stood on central streets in the capital Minsk, waving lit-up phones and flowers and cheering as cars drove past honking horns in support. Official statements suggested a more conciliatory approach following public outrage at extreme police violence, including shootings and beatings. Senate Speaker Natalia Kachanova said on television that Lukashenko had ordered officials to review detentions and more than 1,000 people taken into custody at protests had been released. Lukashenko's opponents accuse him of rigging the election to defeat his main rival, popular opposition candidate Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who has left the ex-Soviet country for neighboring Lithuania. People came out to contest the election results, and police used stun grenades, rubber bullets, tear gas, water cannon, and, in at least one case, live fire to disperse the crowds. At least 2 people have died and hundreds have been wounded in the violence, while nearly 7,000 have been arrested. Coming up in sports, Leipzig stunned Atletico to reach Champions League last 4. But first, the local scene. About 100 amateur golfers are set to tee off in the inaugural 2020 Selangor Golf Classic from 29th until 30th September as the state seeks to revive its domestic tourism industry. Well, the tournament, a collaboration between Tourism Selangor and Liberty Golf Services, aims to promote domestic tourism in the state under its Pusing Selangor Dulu campaign, which is targeting 6 million tourists this year. Liberty Golf Services General Manager Yushin Ng said the tournament's participation have been limited to curb the spread of COVID-19 pandemic.
So looking into all this and the whole event flow from the time that the golfers come in to register their golf game and then off to the tee off, and how they play amongst each other when they come back for their lunch, and then off to also the prize presentation, how will the stress within our team, can we handle all this? And so we would want to, and we've made all these safety parameters being accorded for, and we found out that 120 will be the top side of things.
The first round of the 36-hole, a two-day tournament, will be played at the Mines Resort and Golf Club in Sri Kembangan, Selangor, while the final round will be held at the Kota Permai Golf and Country Club in Kota Kemuning. Yushin Eng further noted that participants would also have a chance to play an optional round at the Glenmarie Golf and Country Club in Shah Alam and take home 1,200 ringgit worth of goodies when they sign up with a registration fee of 999 ringgit. Well, RB Leipzig boss Julian Nagelsmann says he is relishing facing former mentor in Paris Saint-Germain coach Thomas Tuchel in the Champions League semi-finals following his side's stunning win over Atletico Madrid. Leipzig, who were only founded in 2009, booked a semi-final berth at their first attempt in the knockout stages when US midfielder Tyler Adams hit an 88th minute winner. The goal sealed the Germans' win after a Joao Felix penalty for Atletico had cancelled out Dani Olmo's header for Leipzig early in the second half. Nagelsmann's Leipzig held their nerve after Felix equalised before Adams came off the bench to seal the winner after superb work in the build-up by left-back Angelino and midfielder Marcel Sabitzer. Leipzig now face PSG next Tuesday, also in Lisbon, for a place in the 23rd August final. It was PSG's German coach Tuchel, 46, who gave Nagelsmann his first break at Augsburg 12 years ago as a scout, which saw him then become a coach. When coaching his former club Hoffenheim, Nagelsmann lost twice and drew against Tuchel, who was then in charge of Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga between 2016 and 2017. Nagelsmann was full of praise for PSG, who came back against Atalanta on Wednesday to win after scoring 2 late goals. This is the first time Leipzig have made the knockout stages of the Champions League, and having already beaten Tottenham in the last 16, they want to make more history. Arturo Vidal has won Bayern Munich. His Barcelona team are the best team in the world ahead of their Champions League quarterfinal in Lisbon on Saturday. And Barca coach Quique Setién was in confident mood too, insisting Bayern's informed striker Robert Lewandowski is clearly not at the level of his captain Lionel Messi. Their comments came after former Bayern midfielder Lothar Matthäus told German media earlier this week that Lewandowski has overtaken Messi as the best player in the world and he no longer fears Barcelona. Vidal spent 3 years at Bayern, who are deemed heavy favourites to reach the semis after winning the German title and hammering Chelsea while Barca crumbled in La Liga. But Vidal said Barcelona's opponents should not be complacent. Barcelona surrendered the Spanish title to Real Madrid after winning only 7 of their 11 matches following the restart. Then they laboured to a 3-1 win over Napoli in the Champions League last 16 on Saturday. Messi is likely to be key at the Estadio da Luz, but some suggesting all Barcelona's hopes rest on the 33-year-old's shoulders. Yet Bayern have their own trump card in Lewandowski, who has scored an astonishing 53 goals in 44 games for his club this season. Messi has hit 31 goals in 43 matches for Barca. And that's it from us this evening. In our top story, Health Ministry advocates use of cashless transaction in health facilities amid COVID-19. Join us for updates at noon at 12:30 tomorrow. And I'm Mohammed Amin Carlos. From all of us here, thanks for watching and a very good evening.